In this video, I want to talk a bit about the overall context and the overall trajectory of the 7 years since my first hospitalization and bipolar diagnosis, all the way until now, where I'm actually quitting the medication. And more or less, in terms of big episodes, there was that first one where I was hospitalized for 9 days and diagnosed. And then there was a 1.8 to 2 year break. Yeah, more or less a 2 year break, just under 2 years, let's say. And that led to a second hospitalization. This time, that hospitalization was for a full month, almost, at least 4 weeks. And then, since that hospitalization, there was this other phase of 5 years, which I'm coming to the end of right now. The end. When I say the end, I mean the phase of transitioning to fully quitting medication. Um, but yeah, even within those two phases of the 2 years and the 5 years, there were lots of sub phases. So I remember after the first diagnosis, when I was really, really high, once I came out of the hospital, then I was really, really low. I was on risperidone and I was depressed and I was not able to do exercise or socialize. I was sleeping all day. And then I went to France. I went with family. I had my first Christmas since then and my 25th birthday. It was a bit of a rough time because I was not as depressed, but I was still very, very low energy. I had no plan for the future, and I was kind of waiting on going back to the US to finalize some of my stuff. I had maybe a car to sell. I had books and possessions and all this stuff. I had my girlfriend then at the time who was still living there and studying in her final year. So I was planning to go see her for her graduation. And so I had a bit of a low feeling time, but gradually improving. And one of the key things was I tried a new medication with the psychiatrist in France, and that medication made me faint. So then we decided, let's not use that one and go back to whatever I was having in the US. And then for a trip that I took with my mom for my birthday to Portugal, I actually forgot the box at home. And so I was going to spend a week without medication, and that week went fine. We told the psychiatrist about that, and he said, with all the discussions that we were having, he said, we could try having no medication. So lifestyle factors were still pretty low, and my mood was pretty low, but overall, the the medication piece was not happening or not happening as much as I remember. And that kind of stabilized once I went back to the US, saw my girlfriend for her graduation. Then I started getting motivated to apply for jobs again. I went to the UK in 2018. So more or less, this was 9 months later. And from there, I lived a happy, stable, steady life for the next 1+ years, 1.5 or so, without medication. And so I was wondering, like, was this a one-off event? Like, was it triggered by entirely lifestyle factors, or am I really bipolar or not? Like, what's going on? And then that second episode happened where again there were lifestyle factors at play. My grandma had just died. I was quite high from having just found my purpose in terms of, oh, okay, wow, this big moment of I want to be a coach because I had just been coached by someone to figure that out. Um, and my grandma died, and I was also working a job in London where my commute was more than 1 hour. I think it was about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So in there was a 1 month period where I would wake up at 6 a.m., go for a run or take a cold bath, and then do 1 hour plus of transport, listening to a podcast, then work a 9 to 5, and then at 5, I would come back home at 6:30, and then I would eat dinner, and then I would work on my business for the next 3, 4 hours, and then I would sleep, and then I would do it all again. And I was super high energy, and things were okay, but maybe I was transitioning towards a bit of a manic state. And it was probably exacerbated with my grandma, and it was exacerbated again on my birthday. And there's more on that later because there was a trauma that happened right around the time of my birthday, back when I was 5 years old. And I think my body kind of knew that there was something going on around that time period. So that might have added to the stress levels. At least that's what I think right now. But anyway, on my birthday, big party, went all out, still kind of in my escapism phase. And I basically partied for a whole weekend, from s- being awake on the Saturday morning, enjoying Saturday day, partying all Saturday nights, going to an after party all Sunday day, and then coming back, kind of recovering, needing to work the next day, and then actually emailing that I couldn't, because I just was not in that headspace or able to in my body. And so I missed that Monday. And at the same time, I was also having some heated arguments with the housemate that I was living in, and kind of um, that kind of exacerbated things as well. At some point, I took a hotel room, and from whatever that point was, my memory's a little blurred. And that I was definitely in the manic kind of zone at that point. I took a hotel room, and even if I had missed the Monday of work, I should have gone to work on Tuesday at the very least, but I didn't. I kind of ignored that that was a reality that I had to face, and instead, I took a train to some random place. It happened to be Hastings in the UK. Uh, I didn't know why. I don't even know if I had a ticket, to be honest. I might have, I might not have. Um, but I ended up in Hastings, and I was in my manic mode, and I lived another day in Hastings in my manic mode. And it was when the night was coming that I was starting to ask people, if they knew of any place that I could crash. And that sort of alerted the authority figures. And then I actually got taken by, I don't know if I remember if it was the police or if it was an ambulance, but then I was taken to a medical center. I spent some time there, got an evaluation with one doctor. It was clear that I was out of my mind, and from that point, I got taken to another hospital, which was near where I was registered, because I hadn't fully transitioned in my move to London yet. So they took me back to Coventry, and that's where I spent 1 month in the Coventry psych ward. I'm aware that this video is getting a little longer than the usual, so I'm gonna kind of wind it down. Um, from that point, 30 days in hospital were kind of a pain. And then after that, there was a transition. And after that, I was on a certain meds dosage. I had transitioned to olanzapine, which was causing weight gain and low energy and all of that. But it had stabilized me. It was starting to stabilize me. Um, I went back to family in France. And 2, 3 months later, this was early 2020 now when I was in France. Then COVID hit. So I was just starting to get better and I was starting to apply for jobs again because obviously I didn't turn up to work when I went to the psychiatric hospital. And so I got fired. And I also kind of made a big dent with the relationship with my then housemates. Um, but besides that, I was starting to get better. I was starting to get more into spirituality at that point. I was meditating more. It was COVID, so we were in lockdown, and that did not help. But then several months passed. I got another job in the UK, and throughout the transition between of lockdown happening, transition back to normal world life, there was a bit more lows and a bit more emotional eating because lack of social life, lack of activities. But other than that, mentally, I was doing fine. Um, I started a program with something called the Recovery and Enablement Track because I was really, now that I had been hospitalized twice, I was really keen on not having that happen again. Because I'd lost many months of my life and I didn't, yeah, I wanted to understand it in depth and also minimize the risks of it ever happening again. And that kind of kicked off the phase of, yeah, being totally sober, being a bit more conscious with my lifestyle. Uh, few, yeah, not even a year later, after an event, I cut down alcohol tremendously. Um, and yeah, slowly and steadily with better lifestyle habits, I also started reducing medications until fast forward to a couple months ago, where I did all these things. I talked to the psychiatrist about my theories of maybe having ADHD, that was mismanaged, being a part of the reasons why I was diagnosed with bipolar, or at least went into psychosis and manic states. So I did the ADHD test, and I'll speak more about that in another thing. But after all of this work, then we agreed, yeah, let's just transition towards no meds, and see how it goes. So that's it for this one. Thank you so much. Yeah, hope to see you in the next one.